Shalom, good morning on the East Coast, good afternoon for people in Israel and in the Middle East. I am Jonathan Conricus, filling in temporarily for Jonathan Shanzer, who is on an important mission, and we wish him safety in getting where he needs to go. Once he'll arrive safely, we'll tell you where he was and what he was doing. But we are, of course, on day number 4 of the war between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Today, I am very grateful of course, happy to host this, but I am very, very happy that we have a man who is probably in the highest demand in Israel today, Beni Sabti, who is an expert researcher at the Israel INSS, the Israel National Institute for Strategic Studies. He heads the Iran program and is perhaps one of the most knowledgeable experts on Iran, comes from the country, speaks the language, understands the nuances, and has been following events in Iran ever since his family was exiled from Iran to Israel. So in a few moments, we will have a direct conversation with Beni Sabti from the INSS, and we'll unpack Iranian society, the Revolutionary Guard, the regime, the threats that the regime face, and many other interesting things that I think are sometimes missing from the conversation. We'll do this update, this morning brief, a little bit differently because I think it would be a bit odd to be speaking about other conflicts when there is so much to unpack with regards to Iran. So we will focus on specifically on the state of operations between Israel and Iran and dive into it. Now, the first thing that I would focus on is, of course, the situation in Israel. Sadly, 24 Israeli civilians have been killed, or rather murdered, by the Iranian regime by incoming ballistic missiles. Last night was sadly no exception. We had impact sites in central and northern Israel, and the total amount of Israeli casualties is more than 590 wounded, and as I said, 24 Israelis killed. This is happening, or what the Iranians are doing, firing ballistic missiles at Israel, still being able to temporarily overwhelm Israeli air defenses, despite the fact that Israel is not fighting alone with allies, and despite the fact that Israel has the best air defenses in the world as a result of many years of investment, US-Israeli investment, but Israeli capabilities. Despite all that, the Iranians still are able to fire salvos of around 30 to 50 missiles at a time, but I think that is a temporary situation. Israeli Air Force has now achieved, and this is a headline of historic proportions, the Israeli Air Force has achieved aerial dominance and enjoys almost complete freedom of operations above Iran. That is no small thing, and this will really pave the way, and it will allow Israel to pursue whatever military and perhaps political goal that Israel will seek to implement with regards to Iran. What Israel is focusing on currently in our strikes is, of course, continuing to peel the layers of the Iranian nuclear program. And I think that Mark Dubovitz and other experts have presented exactly the details of what's going on and what each component means of the Iranian nuclear program. There's also maps on our website, fdd.org, where we explain and put on the map the different facilities. It's a lot of names, a lot of facilities that the Iranians have built over the years. And so far, Israel has been operating and damaging Natanz, Isfahan. There's talk about what's going on in the crucial and but really the strategic facility of Fordo. I do not yet have information or confirmation from official sources what exactly is going on. There's lots of talk, lots of rumor. There's videos out on social media, reports of an earthquake or a earthquake-size explosion, seismic activity in that area. But I think we should be careful and not to say things that are not yet confirmed. But Israel is peeling away at those capabilities, and that's, of course, the main topic and the main objective of Israel. But in parallel to that, Israel is hunting launchers. And Israel has gained quite significant success continuously hunting launchers, the launchers of the missiles, which are the most important bottleneck and crucial asset that the Iranian regime has in order to fire missiles at Israel. Sadly, the Iranian regime has produced and important thousands of ballistic missiles over the years, but the most important asset, which they cannot produce or import anymore, are the launchers. And last night, the Israeli Air Force took out tens of launchers as they were getting ready to fire towards Israel. And if you think about the number of ballistic missiles that have been fired each night or each 24 hours, there is a steady decline in the amount of missiles that the Iranians are capable of firing. This is strategically important because that is the leverage that the Islamic Republic still has over Israel. But my assessment is that this will go and change, and we will see less and less incoming missiles towards Iran. And of course, that's important. The Iranians firing recklessly and indiscriminately, killing Israeli civilians, while Israel continues to attack military targets and to focus our Israeli efforts on the military targets. Last thing that I will say before we get to the main event here of speaking with Beni Sabti is the international perspective and the regional perspective. I think I would never had assessed that Tehran would make a call to Beirut, Hezbollah, telling them, we need your help, we're under Israeli attack. And the response that the Iranian regime would get was, we're busy. Never would I believe that to have happened, but that is exactly what has happened. And I think that is overwhelming, that is extremely important for what's going on. The Iranians spent billions of dollars and resources, time and energy in building Hezbollah as a close quarter deterrent against Israel from doing exactly what Israel is doing now. But as a direct result of Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7 and the fact that Hezbollah joined in the fighting and was afterwards not decimated but dealt severe blows on the battlefield, Hezbollah so far is opting to stay out and not to come to the rescue and aid of their patrons. And that is simply unbelievable. The second thing that I never thought wasn't in my bingo card, as Shanzo usually says, was that Syria would officially acknowledge that they are allowing Israel to operate in Syrian airspace. That is also something that who would have thought? But the Syrian regime continues to make smart strategic decisions and to try to get in the good graces of the West. I think this is very much thanks to American leadership, American diplomacy, and indicating to the Syrians that if you do good and smart things, good things will follow, prosperity and progress will follow for Syria. I'm happy to see that Israel isn't fighting alone. France has stated that they will support Israel with air defenses if needed. The Brits are advancing aerial assets to the region in preparation. And of course, US air defenses are actively participating in helping to defend Israel. Jordan is defending its own airspace out of its own interests of sovereignty and self-preservation, and is, I would say, indirectly helping in stabilizing the region. And that is, of course, commendable. So while I would welcome more support and more outspoken political support from the Saudis and the Emirates and all other countries that are indirectly benefiting from Israel's actions, I'm happy to see that Israel isn't fighting alone, as it is ridding the area, the region, and the world of an existential threat and definitely a global menace. So that's my take on the situation. I think we are in the beginning of the beginning of this effort against Iran. And I am extremely grateful and very happy to be in FDD and to see that the people, the hardworking experts of FDD have really had impact and are influencing thought and policy for the better of US interests in the region. And I think that is excellent. Now we're moving on to the expert that you'll be waiting to hear from. Beni Sabti, he is a senior researcher and an expert, world-renowned expert on Iran at the INSS, and I am very happy to have him on our show today. Beni Sabti, welcome.
Hello, Jonathan, and all the audience. Thank you for having me here. I will be very glad to answer some of the questions and to help understand Iran and the Iran regime better so we can act better against them.
Thank you, Beni. Thank you for sparing the time. I know that you are in the highest demand, and I was very happy that you were able to spare a few minutes for the people at FDD listening. Yes, we have many Iranian expatriates that watch and consume our content, so some of the people that are listening actually know, but we will be speaking mostly to the people who have less knowledge about Iran as a country and the Iranian regime. And the first question that I think I'd want to address is, please, based on your family, your background, your understanding of Iranian culture and society and everything that you know as an expert on the topic, if you could shortly explain Iranian society and try to shed some light on the demography and how diverse Iranian society is, and of course, why that matters today when we are at war with the Iranian regime.
Yes, thank you again for the invitation. Just one word about myself. I was actually, as you said, I was born in Iran. I fled Iran when I was 15 years old, 8 years after the revolution. So I know them from inside, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have that sense of how you go towards an Iranian. It doesn't matter if it's an individual or it's the regime. So it gives you a few more tools to do that. About Iran generally, Iranians have some, first of all, have some characteristic special figures that it makes them these kind of people after 2000 or 2500 years of being an empire. Most of these years they were an empire, but the most thing that it hurt them, not the people, but the kingdoms that they were there. It was the corruption and also not seeing the people as involved and being served by the king or by the kingdom. So this was the reason actually that many times brought the Iranian people, even in other centuries, to open the gates for the foreign enemy. And now why I say this in these days, it's not just history. In these days, when we see that Israel is attacking Iran, and only Iran regime, of course, we are not killing people like they are killing our people. I want to say that the Iranian people know that Israel is their friend, and we want the same thing that they want. We want freedom from the Iranian regime, and they want the same thing. We want the freedom of from terror, and also they have terror and this police and IRGC inside Iran that makes the depression and goes against women or homosexuals and any other kind of minorities. So we are in the same page, and we are the foreign enemy of the Iranian regime, only regime, and it can bring a new kind of help to the Iranian people to make them free again and to have a more democratic control and regime for themselves. This is one thing that I...
So you're saying, basically you're saying that there's historical precedent for internal upheaval against corrupt regimes in Iran as a result of external pressure applied. That's extremely interesting. But could you say maybe a few words about the demography, how diverse the country of Iran is, with almost 100 million people, but not all of them are Persians and not all of them are Muslim. So I think maybe people would appreciate to understand this.
Yes, the diversity in Iran is very vast. We have in the center about the 50% of the population. They are Persians, real Persians, and they live in the center of Iran, in the big cities of Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, and what is in the middle of that. In the borders, we have the minorities, and they are in the periphery. The Iranian regimes, for many decades and many centuries, they saw the minorities as enemy, because the borders were sometimes between, in the middle of that minority. Some of them, for example, the Kurds, some of them are inside Iran, some of them are inside Iraq. So there is a division between the Kurds, and the Kurds don't have their freedom, even the autonomy and local freedoms for using the language, or writing in their language, or things, small things in our way of seeing, but the regime doesn't allow them to have that. Also the Baluchis or the Arab in the south, so they see them as almost as enemy. Most of them, also most of the minorities, they are Sunnis, and not like the Persians that are Shiites. So this is another reason to be suspicious against the minorities, because Iran regime thinks that they cooperate with Iraq, with Saudi Arabia, maybe with Israel, of course. So all these things bring the regime not to invest in that areas. They don't have roads, much less than the Persian areas. Much less roads, much less water to drink, and even, for example, the oil that comes out from Khuzestan, the Arab province. The profits are not for them. They are only for the center, actually for the regime, of course, most of it. But they don't enjoy it. So the minorities actually are kind of also an enemy to the regime. The problem is that they are not organized. They don't go against the regime. They have very local interests. And if someone could unite the minorities, maybe we could have a change. One important thing, that we cannot demand the separation of the minorities from Iran, because it will make a very bigger and more dangerous problem to the region. Iran has to be united, has to remain united, and not to be separated to many parts.
Now, let's assess the situation. We've seen lots of footage coming out of Iran of people that are fleeing and evacuating Tehran and perhaps other locations. Do you have any sense of giving people an understanding of the pressure in Iranian society? And have you seen any significant, authentic expressions against the regime so far? I think that's a topic that a lot of people are trying to understand, and it's very limiting to understand, because if you don't speak Persian and if you can't kind of filter out fakes and nonsense, it's very difficult. But this is an important topic, and I think you would be uniquely positioned to understand it.
Sure, and I have to say, I hope that you forgive my English if it's not so perfect, but I will try.
Excellent. Please carry on.
Thank you. In this war between Israel and Iran, the people of Iran don't take the side of the regime. They want to be separated from the regime. Actually, fleeing from Tehran or other cities, it's not about only rescuing yourself. It's a passive action not to cooperate with the regime. Because as a child, I saw human chains in the 80s that were made around IRGC bases, buildings of the government or of the regime, and they wanted to preserve. They were in the first years of the revolution, and they were enthusiastic for the revolution. They wanted to preserve it. After 47 years, that not one promise was fulfilled by the regime for the people. And it's not just the prices and economy. It's about humiliating the Iranian people, the women, the homosexuals, the men, not having electricity, not having water, and so many promises were made. So when you see an Iranian flee from the city, it's not about only fearing from the bombing. It's kind of passing action that says, I'm not working with the regime. I don't want to be there when they are bombed. This is a very important thing, because once we thought that, oh, if we attack Iran, so the people will unite with the regime. No, no, no. You know what is the most popular series in Iran? Lost. Because every Iranian is lost. He is not supported by his regime. The regime doesn't serve them. The regime takes from them their lives, their money, everything. So they don't want to be there. And of course, we see also many clips in the media, in social media, in Twitter, Instagram, that many people are very happy from by these attacks of Israel against the regime, because the same general, the same general that hurts Israel in the nuclear issue, in the terror issue, is also in charge of hijab, in charge of depressing the people, beating the women in Mahsa protests. Really, in 2009, General Hamedani from IRGC was in charge of depressing the protests of 2009. In 2012, he was sent to Syria to depress the Syrian rebel. So they know the connection. When we assassinate an IRGC general, for example, yesterday, the intelligence service of IRGC, they see their interest in there. So they are with us. And you can see so many clips that they are happy from the bombing, and they hail Israel, and they shout good slogans, positive slogans for the pilots. And this is really great. The other thing is,
and only people like you, like experts who see and understand understand the language, you see that and you can reflect it. We don't see that reflected in international media, not in American media, not through the news agencies. That is not what transpires, and I think that's important. And now, even though Israel hasn't said officially that Israel is trying to effect regime change, you speak about it a lot, and I think that many other people, it's on many other people's minds. Let's say, for theoretically speaking, that Israel indeed wants this to happen. I'm not saying that Israel wants to or has acknowledged it, but let's say that Israel wants to do. If you could give advice, especially what not to do, what that Israel and perhaps the US should refrain from doing, based on history, based on your understanding of Iranian society, what should Israel refrain from doing in order to help the Iranian people rise up and free itself from the regime?
Actually, I have to say that I say that the regime is falling, not just because I wish or I want. Of course, I want this regime to be away and not to be there. For freedom of us and the Iranian people, it's the same, as I said before. The thing is that we are doing all these actions, as I said, like that example of the IRGC generals, that we assassinate them. These are the hands and the legs and the eyes and the heart of the regime. It doesn't matter for what reason you take them out. It hurts the regime, not only the technical thing of the missile issue or IRGC as a general. It hurts the regime, because most of them are advisors to the leader. He is now like a guy without no legs and no hands and maybe one eye. I'm very sorry for this graphic description, but the thing is, this system is run by IRGC, by terrorists. In these last years, Iran regime became more and more like Hamas. So when you take them out, you are kind of bringing the fall of the regime. Even if you don't want to, it can happen, and maybe very soon, in not so many weeks. So
what should Israel refrain from doing? Is there anything that Israel should be careful not to do?
Yes. So Israel must be very careful not to, of course, hurt the Iranian people, not to attack them, because they are our friends. Only the military places of
Establishment. Yeah.
IRGC, yes, and other buildings or figures that are connected to the regime. So this is the main thing, that they can see that they are separated from the regime, and Israel is actually more and more their ally, and not to go against us, not to be united with the regime. And I think even there will be some figures in the regime that maybe in a few days, maybe in a few weeks, they will sense the danger, and like what happened in the end of Soviet Union, I don't know, maybe one general, even from IRGC or from other place or some other figure, he can come out and maybe make a coup or go against his regime, because he sees his interest to be rescued and to maybe to bring a new regime to Iran. This can also happen. So we have to to separate the Iranian people from the regime, and also tactically not to advise the regime with all the information that goes on in the media, all the pictures and all the information about the bombings and where the missiles hit. So this is the things that I think we can help them with.
Thank you. Beni Sabti, we could go on for hours. I have many questions and I would love to hear more of your knowledge. But unfortunately, this is the format and we are limited. I'm sure that our viewers found this very, very insightful. What Israel should do, what the US should do or shouldn't do, and the chances of this being a important milestone in the history of the Iranian people, maybe freeing themselves of the regime. I want to thank you very much for your time and expertise, and I wish you the best. And something tells me that this isn't the last time that we'll be seeing you.
Yes, sure. I will be. It was a great discussion, and please let's do more of that. Please.
Thank you, Beni. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now to wrap things up, and I apologize for going a little bit long, but I think listening to an Iran expert is probably worth it. Just to give you an update of what's been going on and what FDD experts have on tap for you today. First, I'd say that if you haven't noticed and if you haven't been watching your phone or TV, FDD experts are everywhere. The team is firing all cylinders. FDD experts are in across all media, top tier media, US and international and Israeli, and I think making tremendous and strong efforts. What we have on tap is, of course, there's a special SITREP emergency episode of the Iran Breakdown, FDD's new podcast hosted by none other than Mark Dubovitz himself. In this episode, Mark is joined by Barak Ravid, an Israeli journalist operating in the US, and Nadav Eyal, and they have a great discussion about the conflict, how it's escalating, and what it means. And this is a great way of understanding the scope of this confrontation. Number two is our expert, Andrea Stricker and Anthony Ruggiero. They released a new memo examining nuclear cooperation between Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea. It's, of course, very timely, not by coincidence, that FDD refers to as the axis of aggressors. And the analysis highlights the critical and often overlooked points that the regimes do not operate as isolated threats, but as an interconnected network, which is a collective challenge to Israel and, of course, the free world. And third, finally, stepping away from Iran for a second, even though it is difficult, FDD's David Daoud has published a policy brief on the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, otherwise referred to as UNIFIL, arguing that the mission has consistently failed to contain Hezbollah or to contribute in any other meaningful way to regional stability. And he underscores that UNIFIL has become not just ineffective, but actually redundant and unnecessary, that the resources funding it could be better directed towards effort that would actually enhance stability in the Middle East. And that is, of course, ahead of the vote that is coming in August to renew the mandate. That's it for today. Of course, for more expert analysis, you can check out our website and the YouTube. All of the interviews by FDD experts are diligently posted there. And tune in on Wednesday. Hopefully, we will have Jonathan Schanzer back from his travels for another thought-provoking episode of the FDD Morning Brief. Very thankful to be here today. Wishing you all the best and saying shalom from Israel.